Welcome everyone to today's webinar on sustainable procurement and modern slavery risk, with a specific focus on meeting global legislative requirements. Firstly, a warm welcome from Greenstone. We know that it's a challenging time for everyone at the moment, and it's not always easy to remain focused on work. But we hope this latest webinar hosted by us will provide you with, you and your teams with some food for thought and practical guidance as you try and steer your organisations forward. I'm Giles Scott Hayward, Head of Supplier Portal at Greenstone, and I will be joined by Colleen Turon, Director at Ardea International, which is a specialist sustainability, business and human rights consultancy. Colleen's thoughts today will be invaluable. She has carried out countless projects helping companies meet their legal obligations, policy and due diligence requirements around human rights and slavery. She runs various masterclasses on the subject and provides online toolkits to help companies with all aspects of compliance and best practice. She's also uniquely positioned as a qualified lawyer to provide us with real insight into the teeth of the various global slavery legislation. So we have 40 minutes today, so hopefully you'll be able to join us for the full length. Please enter any questions that you might have in the question box provided. We'll respond to these questions offline, and if appropriate, send an FAQ document to all attendees. We'll also have a brief question and answer session at the end of the webinar where we can pick up on some of your questions and comments. So the agenda for the day, as I mentioned, 40 minutes, and the idea is for Colleen to provide an overview of modern slavery legislation, where we have come from, where we are now, and what the future holds. I will then look at how human rights and modern slavery fits within the wider remit of a sustainable procurement strategy, and how software can and should underpin these strategies. Hopefully we'll have some time at the end for the Q&A. So before I hand over to Colleen, just to introduce, I think we'd all agree that there is now a focus on supply chains like never before, be it from an environmental, human rights and labour standards, or data protection perspective and so on. There is an expectation for organisations to take responsibility and understand the impact they're having throughout their value chain. As Colleen will discuss, this focus has led to a greater understanding of the human rights issues that still exist in the supply chain today. It's given rise to more stringent legislation to address these issues, and we hope provided the opportunity for us to improve the way we work and the lives of many throughout the supply chain. So I'll hand over to Colleen now.
Thank you, Giles. Share my screen. Thank you, Giles. Just looking for where my slides have disappeared to. So you're now seeing a screen that's pretty messy. There we are. Sorry about that hiccup. So thank you very much for inviting me again, Giles, to speak today. And as you said, I just wanted to I'm going to be looking at the global legislation and the impact that this growing legislation is having on business who are being required to report on the steps that they are taking either to address environmental needs or to address modern slavery. Sorry about jumping through these slides. Just as Giles has said, we work with a number of organisations from small to quite large and have had some really interesting projects over the last 10 years looking at both the legal compliance aspect in addressing challenges around modern slavery risk, sustainability, business and human rights, but also developing due diligence frameworks and looking at engagement and training around that. Now, it would be odd to have a webinar today in this particular period without having some reflection on the impact of COVID-19. I mean, we know that many people are being impacted on this, and the question we've had is what has been the impact on on about the 40 million people estimated to be in modern slavery today, and how are their lives being impacted. And we're beginning to see a number of reports coming out on the reality that actually COVID-19 is accentuating the risk, and that the pandemic is going to heighten the risk for many people in the supply chains. An example is perhaps in the Gulf, where migrant workers are being lodged in accommodation which is densely packed. It's often poorly sanitized, and the risk of the virus being spread is very heightened.